The Indian banking industry has evolved over decades and continues to play an important role, not only in sustaining growth, in ensuring investments, but also looking at those sectors or the sections of the society too, which need more support of the banking industry. In the global context, Indian banking industry is still growing. It has the potential. It's true that even today, the two-thirds of the capital assets of the country are with the public sector banks. But the private sector banks have grown phenomenally, and some of them have done exceptionally well, making this country and the banking industry proud. By all projections, Indian banking industry has the potential to become the third largest in the world in less than 1.5 decades, growing from less than $1.5 trillion to maybe 28 trillion US dollars. It's not a quantum that matters. It's how the banking sector growth is in sync with the country's thinking and the country's development. The 2008-9 financial crisis, followed by the economic crisis, making the crisis the most severe the global economy has seen in the last 6 decades, if not more. Here, I would give credit to India and to the Reserve Bank also, to our banking system. There was a minimal exposure to such kind of credit, the toxic credit, as I say. The fundamentals remained strong. The rate of investment was high. The rate of savings was high. And the Indian banks, Indian insurance companies, like in some of the other companies where the oversight was good, remained strong. Even if you are not big as the developed countries, which for historical reasons we couldn't have been, we were able to retain the credibility, the faith of the people, those who save, from the poor to the big, and those who borrow from the banks. Savings rate, last few years, there has been a decline. And the fall also when it comes to the borrowings. These both are very disturbing features for an economy which is still growing well, but cannot be insulated from what's happening elsewhere in the world. This is because the global economy has not recovered from the severe shock. Many of you would recall, it was a coordinated effort, a collective decision of the major economies of the world, the G20 as we call it, which has emerged as an inclusive, representative global platform to address financial and economic challenges and situations. The meeting in London on the 4th of April 2009 led to the injection of over $3 trillion US dollars as stimulus packages. But in India, it was done very intelligently, not in one go, and focused. So clearly targeting those sectors which needed that support. We were deep in the red territory when it comes to our exports. We were minus 39.4. Unfortunately, India is not that big a manufacturing country as this country has the potential. Services and merchandise exports put together, or the share, maybe is 4%. Yes, both put together, we are close to $1 trillion US dollars, which is not a mean achievement. But if you ask me, is it enough? The answer is an emphatic no. When you look by global standards, other competing or comparable economies, our manufacturing has stagnated at 16%, the share of manufacturing in India's GDP. India has become self-sufficient in agriculture, ensuring food productivity for its people because of the great green revolution. This country should have started the second green revolution, in my humble view, about 7 to 8 years ago. This is the time for India to move for the second revolution in agriculture. Why I say so? Because there is no country in the world which can produce enough to feed 1.2 billion Indians. India has to do it itself and remain a food surplus country. Today, the agriculture holdings are getting fragmented and smaller. Population has trebled since independence. Therefore, where will we find other avenues? It's only the manufacturing. Only the manufacturing can provide employment to young Indians. We have to bear in mind that we are an ancient civilization, but a very young country. Over 700 million Indians are young. India is home to 17% of the world's population, but 20% of the world's children live in India. We have to think about them. We have to invest in them. And manufacturing is the only way to take it forward. Even services industry, which is a mainstay, their contribution in our GDP, cannot grow beyond a point. Globally, historically, services will grow on the strength of the manufacturing. The national manufacturing policy. I was wondering why it was not done a decade before. And the larger objective of the policy is to raise the share of manufacturing in India's GDP from the 16% I referred to minimum 25-26% in one decade, to create 100 million skilled jobs in one decade. I was conscious of the fact that more than 220 million Indians will be joining, young Indians, joining the workforce by 2023. This policy has resonated globally. And one important aspect is to create national investment and manufacturing zones. Now, these are not just industrial clusters. These will be standalone, planned, integrated industrial townships. Greenfield. After India's independence, there was only one planned industrial city which came up. And the private sector contribution and Jawaharlal Nehru's own support and vision, both were important. That is Jamshedpur. There were few residential planned cities which came up, in particular in northern India, the Chandigarh. Here, we hope to create at least 12, if not more. And it's not something which is on paper. Decisions have been made. The government of India is going to provide the entire funding for the trunk infrastructure. And for the establishment of these townships for the first time in India, what the world wanted, our partners, the investors, we have effectively created a single window clearance mechanism. These will be managed by the SPVs between the government and the industry, as it should be in partnership. That is what we believe in. That is what we have invested in. That's what we shall nurture. The prognosis for the year 2012 for the world economy is not good, nor for the world trade. But we have to somehow keep on growing. That's a big challenge. We were 167 billion in our exports in 2008-9. We crossed 305 billion in 2011. But I am worried because A, the import bill, primarily because of our compulsion, our needs, to import what we don't have, in particular petroleum, oil and gas. The prices have skyrocketed, and that has led to the ballooning of the import bill. That's where the real challenge for Indian industry, for Indian exporters lies. And that's why we went consciously for market diversification. In one stroke in 2009, we moved into 39 new markets, various incentive and support measures. 26 under one scheme, and 13 under another scheme of focus markets. And these are big markets in Asia, Africa, and we went right up to the Far East. We have added more, we have continued with the policy. That has paid up. Today, India's trade with Africa is 67 billion plus. If you look at the numbers a few years ago, it was not there. If you look at our trade with the ASEAN region, is 73, 74 billion. You cannot be a global player by truncating the globe. You have to embrace the entire globe. That's what we are seeking to do. I know we as a government can only create an enabling policy environment, but at the same time, it would be wrong for anybody to assume that one institution or individual alone can direct the path of growth. It has to be a national mission. It has to be a partnership. That's what I believe in. Today, industry needs credit. That's an issue. Credit at affordable costs. Ever since the interest rates have been raised, not for the savings but for lendings, the CRR is an issue. Reserve Bank has a duty to perform. And we respect that. With the Basel III norms kicking in, you have to be very prudent. You have to adhere to those norms to ensure that globally your ratings remain good. But at the same time, liquidity must remain, credit must be made available at lower cost for the industry and for the exporters. Because again, the social factor cannot be overlooked. It's directly connected to job creation, job sustenance, or the threat of job losses. Economic activity has to continue. Investment must flow. Credit must be affordable. And that applies also for the exporters. We created a window, and I must express my gratitude and appreciation both to the Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the architect of the economic reforms in 1991, and to the then Finance Minister, who are accepting our request to create a separate window for dollar credit for the exporters. And I am of this view that unless and until we ensure dynamic economic activity, we will not be able to find answers to the present problems, which are going to remain for some time, because this recession is deeper. This crisis is deeper than any of the previous ones. But equally important it is to reach out to those who do not have access to the ATMs, who have never filled a bank saving deposit form. These are the deprived sections. It's not their fault. How do we help them? The farm laborers, the poor people, an unemployed young man or woman who also have dreams and the right to dream like each one of us, through the financial inclusion, by using modern technology. I remember in the 80s when India's young Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi, talked of technology, the 21st century world, the banking reforms and computerization. There were howls of protest and chest beating by the left and the right both, in Parliament, outside Parliament, strikes. I'm sure many in this room would recall. But where we are today, same computerization, same technologies have empowered our banks, expanded their reach. It should grow more, so that each Indian has access to credit, each Indian has access to banking services. Then only we can say that we are growing in a right manner, in an inclusive manner. We are remembering from where we started this journey. We are also remembering the message that was given to us by the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi. You have to think of the poorest of the poor. At the same time, ensure that India's industry continues to grow. We have a vision. As I say, I want to see in my lifetime India as the workshop of the world, and we can become India as an economic leader, which we are becoming. Thank you.